Welcome to the YWCA. I have a feeling, as these things often go, that we're kind of preaching to the choir this morning, but that's okay. I don't mind preaching to the choir. They usually yell amen a lot, and that's very reinforcing for me. But what I do hope is that you leave today with some tidbits that you can take back to the people who aren't in the choir, and the people who didn't need to show up this morning, and that you will not let them off the hook, and that you will have some handy tools to work with them. It's interesting to me that a lot of the work about LGBT issues in the workplace did not originate in human servicey kind of places, which is where I would have assumed that people would first start talking about this issue. But that's not where it started. Where it really started was the .coms and some of the other big corporations, when corporate people started realizing that their bottom line was impacted when their employees did not function at 100%. And one of the things that some brilliant person recognized was that when folks can't do what we call bring their whole selves to work, that they weren't as productive. And in the .coms particularly, it was really important that people be creative. It was really important that they be comfortable. We went to blue jeans and t-shirts. We, had Starbucks on site and all kinds of stuff. And somebody recognized that when folks can't be out and open in who they are, that it impedes not only their work, but it impedes the team process as well. Because we don't work real well together with people that we think are hiding something for us or we think are disingenuous. We have trouble with that, and it doesn't facilitate teamwork very well. One of the key things here is not to assume that everybody is straight, and that's what we do in our culture. We automatically assume people are straight. How many of you work in a company that has LGBT employees? Okay, and how many of you have worked with LGBT employees? And I assume the rest of you are unemployed, is that correct? Okay. I'm pretty sure that most of you have worked someplace where somebody is. You may not know, but I assume that most of you have. So we live in a predominantly heterosexual world. And, we know this because of media, because of toys, because of our social institutions, our workplaces. So, when you turn on the TV, what do we see? We see straight couples buying cars. We see straight couples going out to eat. We see families with mom and dad, and then we go to the toy store, and what do we show our kids? What do we buy for our kids? We buy Barbie and Ken. We don't buy Ken and Ken. We buy Barbie and Ken. We buy, pink and blue. We're very, very specific about how we train people to fit into gender roles and how we train people to fit into their heterosexual roles. And we don't talk to children about when you grow up and, maybe marry Johnny. We talk about when you grow up and you marry, for our girls, we talk about when you marry a man, and for our boys, when you marry a woman. So one of the things that I talk a lot about is normalizing. And why is normalizing important? Normalizing really means to me talking about this stuff. So when you're at work, is it common conversation or is it comfortable conversation to talk about my gay uncle and his partner? Is it common conversation to talk about Amendment 1? Is it common conversation to talk about, drag bingo that's this weekend? Is it, how do we say those things or not say those things? And one of the things is that part of this conversation is really about desensitization for folks. And that's for normalizing, that's a real important issue. So, one of the things I tell people is, go home, look in the mirror and say lesbian, 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 lesbian. And you know what? It just, after a while, it just loses its charm. It just, after a while, it just becomes another word. And then, when we get to the point where we can say those, because again, what happens is our kids know what we don't say, and sometimes what we don't say to our children is more important than what we do say. Because what kids know is if you don't talk about something, it's bad. There's a fringe benefit for that, and I have to put in a plug for PFLAG because there's a fringe benefit. One of the things that we know is that young children who are accepted by their parents have much, much better outcomes than children who are not accepted by their parents. And it doesn't have to be 100%. Even a little bit of acceptance is better than no acceptance. And so when a child hears a parent talk about LGBT issues in a non-discriminatory, non-negative way, it goes a long ways in helping that child. And here's the beauty of this. If statistics are right, 1 in 10 kids will grow up to be gay. Who knows if that's right? But if it is, the beauty of this is if parents have done that, then the parents of those 1 in 10 that turn out to be gay will know that their parents are okay with them before they get to the point of coming out to them. And what that may mean is that may save a suicide. That may save a kid from doing something drastic because they assumed that their parents would respond a different way. and they never gave them the opportunity because they were so concerned about it. The other beauty of it is, for the 90% of parents who are raising kids who aren't going to be LGBT, they will raise the other 90% of our population who will then be nice to our 10% of LGBT kids. So everybody wins. You can't lose by being a parent who deals with this issue. Right, why do we talk about this in the workplace? Because inevitably people say to me, we shouldn't talk about sexual orientation at work, and we don't have to talk about sexual orientation at work. We do talk about sexual orientation at work. We talk about it every single day, and the question is, whose sexual orientation are we going to talk about, and what kind of conversation are we going to have? Again, what we know is that it has been definitively shown, and David's made this his life work, that when diversity is dealt with in the workplace, and when diversity is embraced in the workplace, that it makes for a better workplace, and a better workplace makes for a better bottom line. So where do we talk about sexual orientation at work? And what kinds of things do we talk about? Well, we talk about it in some ways verbally, and we talk about it in a lot of nonverbal ways. We talk about it in terms of what kind of protections and benefits we offer people. We talk about it in terms of the decor of our offices and workplaces. We talk about it in terms of training and social events. So, when folks tell me, I don't talk about sexual orientation at work, I'm not interested in your sexual orientation, we should not be having this conversation, I don't want to have this conversation, stop and think a minute. Because, again, we are a heterosexual society who does this all day, every day, and we don't even think about it because it's such common nature for us. Okay? But how many times at work does somebody say, my husband and I went to, my children and my husband and I went to, my family did. I'm dating this really cool guy. We talk about this stuff all the time. And straight people don't think they're talking about their sexual orientation. But they are. My nightmare when somebody brings out the wallet and the pictures drop all the way to the floor. Let me show you my family and my grandchildren. It's like, why do you think I care? But what happens when the person, when John at the water cooler says, well, Jeff and I went to see this really great movie today, or last weekend. Is that okay? Or is it not okay? Because here's what happens. If it's not okay, then either John stands at the water cooler looking kind of foolish while everybody else talks, or he just doesn't go there, and he stays holed up in his office. And then we say he's arrogant, and he's not a team player, and he doesn't get on the same page with everybody else. Well, maybe there's a reason. Because that little factor. Do you know how much energy, time and energy it takes to switch pronouns? I'm old enough that I've done this. I did this for many years as a young adult. You take every pronoun and you just switch from she to he. That takes a lot of effort to keep up with that. And then you change names if you're really smart, because you can't use pronouns all the time. You change names, and then you got to remember what name you used. I'm not that smart. I can't keep up with all that stuff. When you go to the company Christmas party, everybody's nightmare. I tell people, but often they say, but being LGBT is a choice. And that's what makes it different. I didn't choose to be the race that I am. I didn't choose to be a certain ethnicity, but people choose to be LGBT. I have very scientific proof that this is not a choice. And I want to tell you this real fast, okay? I want you to try this little exercise. When you leave here today, I want you to go out, and the first people that you see, I want you to say, I'm going to make myself be attracted to that person, and see what happens. Okay? Because here's my theory. If we really all have a choice about who we're attracted to, how come we're not all married to rich, good-looking people? And I've been to Christmas parties at work, and I tell you what, we're not all married to rich, good-looking people. So I'm pretty convinced that we don't get to choose. Because if we do, a lot of you have made some really poor choices. All right, so what do we do? We can talk about this for a long time, but the real issue is what do we do about this? And one of the things that's really key is being overt in how we talk about it. Do we make a point of using inclusive language? Does your company's non-discrimination statement include sexual orientation and gender identity? Do you, again, when you're advertising, when you're using marketing materials, do you show same-gender couples? Do you make it clear? And, Subaru, I think, is a great example of this. Subaru has made a lot of money on lesbians. because the Subaru Outback is like the lesbian mobile. It's like, you know, that's what you want to be driving. But, you know, Subaru made a concentrated effort. Subaru actually ran marketing campaigns that showed two women in Subarus. And it appeals to people. You buy things, whether you like it or not, because something appeals to you. And something says, this is my kind of car. So, you know, again, it's not just the right thing to do, but it can be really helpful for business to do these things as well. Do you advertise when you're looking for employees? Do you go to places that would have LGBT folks who might be looking for employment? So do you go to Guilford Green? Do you go to, here we don't have a GLBT center, but some cities do. Do you advertise in media that a lot of folks in the LGBT community pay attention to? Do you post notices places where those folks would see them? You know, and do you use inclusive language? Forums are always a good one for me because this is something that you could go and do today that's very low tech and doesn't cost much money. If you changed all of your applications to say spouse as opposed to husband or wife, that makes a difference. If you took out the gender category, that would make a difference. Or if you gave people more options in the gender category, it makes a difference. You know, I've seen some applications that say male, female, and then there's choose not to identify category. And again, social events and gatherings, when you're planning employee events and gatherings, do you specifically say that we're inviting you and whoever you choose to bring? Or is it, you know, come and bring the family? And then I got to figure out what you mean by family. Because chances are you may not mean my family. So it just makes it a whole lot nicer if it's explicit. All right, and this one, this is a slide that Lenora gave me, and it is speak your mind even when your voice shakes. Lenora really likes it, I really like it. I think that one of the things that happens is that, we often think this stuff is really okay, and again, what you can do for the people that weren't here today is you can give them some tidbits on things that they can do that can help. But one of the things that has to happen is people have to speak up. And this has been a challenge for a long, long time. It's a challenge for LGBT people about, do I come out or do I not come out? Do I say something or do I not say something? You know, the thing is that it's a hard call, and if you do come out, then we get into the flaunting business. But what we really know is that when folks really know in their day-to-day lives people, and they know them as people, it really takes away a lot of the question. It takes away a lot of the uncomfortableness, and it makes people realize that really at the end of the day, we're just all people. And what we really want is to all be cared about and all go to work and do our job and be valued as people and employees. And so, just little things like telling people. So, I went to this diversity forum this morning. They talked about LGBT people. It's interesting, as many of these forums as the HR group has done, I've run across some people in the last couple of months since this topic was chosen that have trouble saying what today's topic was going to be. Because somehow it's different. So, it's really, really important that all of you say things to people that let them know that you are okay with this. So we all have a responsibility. It's one person at a time that we change hearts and minds. Amendments are big things. There are big issues around our country with this topic, lots of pending legislation on lots of issues. But we change people's day-to-day experience, one person, one heart, one mind at a time. And you can do that today with no money, no high tech, just you letting people know where you stand. Thank you so much for coming this morning.